Thanks so much, Donna, and thanks to everyone who's joined us today. I'm looking at our list of participants. I see a number of investors and partners, both locally here in Washington, D.C., as well as throughout the nation, and just want to extend our thanks for taking time to join us. And with that, we'll get started. My name is Rachel Riley-Carroll. I lead our impact investing work here at Enterprise Community Loan Fund. And part of that includes the Impact Note program, which we'll talk a little bit more about today, initiatives like Our Region, Your Investment, as well as partnering each year with our wonderful Knowledge, Impact, and Strategies team on the Social Return on Investment report, which we are all here to talk about. So with that, we can go to the agenda. So we have you here for an hour today, and what we'll be discussing is, first, I'll be reviewing just a little bit about Enterprise Community Loan Fund, what we do, the impacts that we've had over the past 30 years as well as most recently, as well as overview about our Impact Note. Our Impact Note is the basis through which we created, with our partners, the Washington Regional Association of Grantmakers, our local impact investing initiative called Our Region, Your Investment, which is focused in the Washington, D.C. region, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that before we launch into the Social Return on Investment report this year, which is titled More Than a Home, Investing Together to Create Opportunity. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to our Knowledge, Impact, and Strategies team, Lindsay Dewar and Aaron Buckley, where they're really going to focus on measuring the impact and the importance of preserving affordable homes and communities of opportunity. After that, I hope you will all have stuck around to hear a very exciting announcement we have to share about Our Region, Your Investment. And then the last 15 minutes we will have for question and answer. So a little bit about Enterprise Community Loan Fund. We are a national nonprofit lender, so we're the lending arm of Enterprise Community Partners. Over the past 30 years, we've invested over $1.6 billion in real estate that strengthens communities. So that traditionally has meant homes, but over the past couple of years, we've really expanded that to finance real estate that we believe creates these opportunity adjacencies for those that we serve, so schools, health centers, grocery stores, and more, and we can talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. We are a U.S. Treasury certified community development financial institution, which just means that we are a private financial institution which is certified by the federal government as having a mission-oriented view on how we deploy our financing. So we meet the financing needs of underserved communities, and our real niche really is around financing, providing the financing that's typically not available from traditional capital markets. So financing that our borrowers wouldn't necessarily be able to get from banks, although we partner with banks all the time. And it's not necessarily that that financing is any riskier than normal financing. It's just that when we provide our lending, it's more tailored to meet the needs of the borrowers, or it's structured in a way that it's more readily available so that they can focus on creating the most impact in their communities. So over the past 5 years, we've invested $630 million in communities throughout the nation. You can see some of our impact metrics right there. So you can see when we have financed homes, schools, grocery stores, health centers, all of which I mentioned earlier. And in addition to those initial impacts around saving families money through affordable homes, creating seats in schools for kids, we're also having these secondary impacts where we're creating jobs through these investments, and we're also generating public sector savings. More of this can be found in our Social Return on Investment report, which I believe was linked in the agenda, but also at the end of the presentation if you wanted more information. And something that I wanted to share about the way that we're investing and what I think is really important to our investors is that we have this theory around our investment strategy called the arc of impact. And for a normal investment fund, what you would have is when you're looking at an investment, you would be placing your money into a fund where maybe your due diligence would be around looking at what your return would be, your principal retention. Once you made that investment, maybe you would get some high-level information into what, asset you invested, and then you would exit that investment. And that would really be it. But for us, it's about so much more than that, and that's really our value proposition to our investors, and it's really why Enterprise, our structure is so unique. And so I just wanted to show you this slide to illustrate how Enterprise is connecting our investors' dollars, so where it says engage investors to fund innovative projects and ideas, to all the other different parts of Enterprise. So we have hundreds of employees working throughout the country to work with communities to develop solutions, new ideas, pilot programs that we think are going to move the dial in serving communities. And then we engage our investors in funding those projects, funding those ideas. Our wonderful knowledge, impact, and strategy team then comes in, they look at the data, they measure, they report, and that allows us to pivot, it allows us to iterate and scale projects that are successful, borrowers that are successful, and then we can then take that and lever that by 10x and have this sort of great 10x impact by advocating for policy solutions that can have broader systematic changes, share best practices, and replicate those successful models throughout the nation. So for our investors, it's much more than $1 equals 1 brick in a project. It's, $1 is potentially seeding a larger theory of change that could have broad scale impact. And one of the vehicles we use to do this is our impact note. For a lot of individuals and organizations that are increasingly looking to move their money into investments that are aligned with their mission and values, it becomes really difficult. They have trouble finding deals, they have trouble evaluating the risk and the impact of those deals, and then the servicing piece of it, so how they're getting paid back, how they're managing the assets, so managing their investment. What we do, and our real value add to this as Enterprise Community Loan Fund and a fund manager for impact investing, is that we provide a solution that allows you to leverage our expertise. So we create this really easy execution for investors where through our impact note, which is a fixed income private debt offering, investors can make investments for as little as $5,000, which are then pooled in a broader pool of investments and then invested into meaningful projects, meaningful real estate projects. So, for example, you can see, and this is just an example, but it shows where multiple investors have invested at different amounts, contributing to a broader pool that is then deployed into multiple projects, and then once those projects pay back into the fund, investors get paid back after that. So it's sort of like this revolving loan fund and cyclical nature around those investments. And there's more information about our impact note, and if you need the full breadth of information around that offering, it can be found at impactnote.com. And so with Our Region, Your Investment, this was the first time that we created a place-based initiative through the impact note. So we had built up a successful track record, raised a lot of money through the impact note, but what had happened was that investors, maybe an investor from California made an investment, but there was no real tie to their community. So they knew they were investing in great projects that were benefiting people throughout the nation, but it wasn't necessarily benefiting folks in their neighbors. It wasn't in their backyard. And so with Our Region, Your Investment, we launched in 2016 with the Washington Regional Association of Grant Makers to try to test out this value proposition of, if we created an initiative where we said to folks, your money can be invested to impact your community, whether that would bring new people to the table to address specifically and through this initiative the housing crisis in the Washington, D.C. region. And I am very proud to say that in year one we raised $12 million through this targeted initiative, and at this point it's been 24 investments that have come through our Region Year investment, and you can see it's a number of, or a wide variety of stakeholders, so 9 individual investments for as little as $5,000, 10 foundation investments, so local foundations as well as family foundations, 2 bank foundations, as well as 3 nonprofit investments. And this slide shows you, and this is also in the report as well, the $12 million we raised was then brought into loan fund, leveraged with additional capital, placed into 5 deals, so 5 projects have been invested in so far through our Region Year investment, with total development cost of over $266 million. So you can really see that $12 million was able to lever up a lot of additional capital for affordable housing in the Washington, D.C. region. And outside of the 488 homes that we were able to protect through our Region Year investment, you can see the additional impacts right there below it. And so with that, I would like to turn it over to our Knowledge, Impact, and Strategies team to talk a little bit more about the one project that we financed through our Region Year investment that we chose to cover this year in our social return on investment report. For us, it was really important that our investors knew that they were getting reporting that was really robust, and it was leveraging those qualitative and quantitative data. We had those economic projections that we had been providing throughout the entire initiative, but providing the stories of the people that were being supported, as well as more robust quantitative metrics and data and outcomes were just really important, and I think that that's what we have with this report, and I'm excited to have them share that with you.
Great, thanks, Rachel. Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Dewar. I'm the Program Director for Impact Assessment and Evaluation at Enterprise. And I just want to pause for a second on this slide and point out that this is Lee. He's one of the residents of Clarendon Court. And we included this quote from the report in the PowerPoint. I think it's really powerful because it's coming straight from one of the residents and talking about how important it is for him and for his family, as well as for all the families that he represents living in affordable housing that are kind of working, contributing to society, and contributing to their community. But without that affordable housing, they would essentially have the risk of losing their place in that community. I think it's a really powerful story, and you're going to hear more about Lee in a few minutes. And so we're going to focus today, and the focus of this year's report is on Clarendon Court. It's 103 affordable homes, and it's located in Arlington, Virginia, which is just outside the border of Washington, D.C. And throughout, we call Arlington an opportunity-rich community, which I'm going to talk more about in a minute. And our Region Year Investment Initiative provided a $1.5 million pre-development loan for the project, and this is really critical early-stage capital that's vital for helping facilitate the preservation of this project. You'll hear more about this in a second, but Clarendon Court was built in the 1940s, and there was kind of a risk for that affordability of the project not to continue, and so our Region Year investment was able to support the ongoing affordability, and so that's really what the story of Clarendon Court is about. And throughout this research process, we use a mix of quantitative and qualitative information. We use the quantitative information because we want this research to be grounded in the data from residents themselves through surveying, as well as through data on the community, what's happening within Arlington and within the region to really understand what's happening. And then we take that and we dive deep into what's happening on site and do resident interviews and stakeholder interviews so that we're not just getting the data, but we're also really understanding what does that mean, what changes are happening in people's lives and in their community, and really putting a face on the impact. And so for us, this is always a really fun endeavor because we get to use all of the data, but we also get to really look at the people whose lives are changing. And so in order to understand the impact of Clarendon Court, it's really important to understand the community in which it is located. Arlington, like I said, is located just over the border of DC in Virginia, and it's a community that offers really robust opportunity for really all residents. It has really great schools, a lot of public transit through metro and bus and bike share. It's got parks and other green spaces and recreational activities, cultural institutions, and then a lot of other important resources like libraries and banks and grocery stores. So there's really pretty much everything that different residents in different life stages need in order to meet their goals and thrive. And so this is a really important context for understanding the impact of Clarendon Court. It's not just about the affordable housing. The story is about the affordable housing located in this incredible community. And so when we were doing our research, 3 areas of impact really stood out: mobility, economic security, and education. And so we're going to go through these one by one in a couple of minutes. And so in order to kind of dive deep into understanding the community and how this creates opportunity for residents, we leveraged Opportunity 360, which is a new online platform that Enterprise launched earlier this fall. And it's available on Enterprise's website, so we encourage you to pop on there and kind of click around. There's a lot of features to explore, which we won't go into today just because we don't have enough time, but we encourage you to check it out. And Opportunity 360 provides both a framework and a robust data set, and it defines opportunity as a set of pathways that allow people to achieve, makes it possible for people to achieve their goals no matter at which point they start. And so these pathways are really important, and they lead to a set of opportunity outcomes, which are those 5 categories featured on that wheel on the slide. So we see these opportunity outcomes in housing stability, education, health and well-being, economic security, and mobility. Really understanding the pathways and the opportunity in these 5 different categories allows us to understand how different aspects of different communities help people thrive. And so this is a really important data set and platform that we used for this year's report. And so by all measures, when we look at Arlington, it really is a community that has a lot of different aspects of opportunity present for the residents. For the population, it's a really diverse and well-educated population. 70% of the residents in Arlington have at least a bachelor's degree. That's compared to only 50% of residents in the region. There's also a lot of diversity, with 33% of the residents in Arlington being foreign-born. And not surprisingly, being in a pretty central location within the DC region means that there's access to a really robust economy. Arlington itself is an employment hub, but then you also have all of the different employment centers throughout the DC region with a really low employment rate. And then having access to community assets and resources. So Arlington has fantastic public schools, which we have a little more data about later in the presentation. There's also a strong public library with not just books and computer access, but literacy classes, resume workshops, computer trainings, other kind of exercise programs. So a lot of resources available through the public library. And then stores and banks and other neighborhood services that are available in the neighborhood. And when we look at Clarendon Court in particular, it's in the red star on that map. We've populated this map with all of the different assets, well, some of the different assets and resources in the community, and you can see really everything is located right on people's doorsteps. The little purple circles are all of the bus stops, and the orange circles are the metro stops. There's a lot of banks and medical facilities in the area, as well as multiple grocery stores and farmers markets within walking distance. And one of the farmers markets accepts different food programs for lower income residents that need to utilize some of their kind of other food resources in order to get healthy food. So there's really a lot right here within walking distance, including the library, which I mentioned earlier is just a little bit northwest of Clarendon Court. And so most of this map is within walking distance of the site. And so when we look at Arlington, having such an attractive and resource-rich place to live naturally means that a lot of people want to live there. And so what we've seen in the past couple decades is an increasing gap between the growth in income and the growth in rents. And so the orange line on this graph is looking at the change in median rent, which has outpaced the change in income. And so this means that it's increasingly difficult for low and moderate income working families to afford to live in such a resource-rich community when they're some of the folks that really need to benefit from the diversity and the resources that are offered in Arlington. And so when we're looking at this community, we can see that if these trends continue, this is going to become an increasingly dire situation for residents, and it creates a lot of dangerous trade-offs. So families that cannot afford to kind of live in this community may be forced to move further away from work and face long commutes, which creates increased stress and commuting costs. It could mean that they have to double up with other families, which has a lot of other negative impacts, or they may have to just pay more of their income on rent, which can create really dangerous trade-offs for not being able to afford healthy food or health care or prescriptions or education or savings. So there's a lot of dangerous trade-offs that start to come up for these families when they're living in this situation. And so in this context, it's really important to promote affordable housing. And we've seen Arlington County, they have really had strong efforts to both create and preserve affordable housing in the county. But even with all of those efforts, there still was a shortage of almost 7,000 affordable homes in 2015. And so it's in this context, when we look at Clarendon Court, we can see how important it is that every single project that's affordable stays affordable, and that more projects are added to the region that are affordable. And so looking at Clarendon Court, as I said, it was built in the 40s. And in 1993, the existing units were rehabbed and new housing units were created. And this was financed through the federal low-income housing tax credit program, as well as through Arlington County through the Department of Community Planning, Housing, and Development. And one of the really important features of this 1993 deal was that Arlington County put in place a provision called the right of first offer, which meant that if within 25 years, if Clarendon Court was going to come up for sale, Arlington County had the first right to purchase that property. So it basically ensures that they can keep the property affordable for that time frame, because if the property were to come up for sale and an interested buyer was someone not committed to preserving the affordability, Arlington County could kind of step into that deal. And so this has been a really critical measure to help ensure the property's affordability. And so in the past couple years, the property owner needed to sell the property, and they knew that this provision was in place, so they sought out McCormick, Barron, Salazar, who's a community partner developer that's really committed to affordability. And through this deal, Our Region, Your Investment provided the $1.5 million pre-development loan, and McCormick, Barron, Salazar was able to work with these other partners to structure a deal that would allow them to purchase the property, to preserve affordability for at least 75 more years, and to renovate the property, which is a really important feature. And so actually the construction is happening probably as we speak. It's been happening on a rolling basis, and we're going to be touching back in with residents to see how things look after the construction's done. And residents now have that assurance of the affordability of their home for at least 75 years into the future, which is really really exciting. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Erin Buckley on our team, who's did all of the interviews and really leading the research effort to understand what we saw from our research. So she's really going to take you deep into it.
Hi everyone, I'm Erin Buckley. I'm an analyst working on impact and Evaluation at Enterprise. So to get started, talking a little bit more about where we are today with Clarendon Court, there are 103 affordable homes, and they're available to households that are making 60% of the area median income or less. And in Arlington, that equates to about $66,180 a year for a family of 4. A lot of the information you're going to be seeing here is based on a survey we did of the residents of the property. And we got a respondents include a really diverse sample of the population at the property. And just a little sample of some of the results we've seen is that 96% of the people that responded said they feel safe in the neighborhood, which is really important for growing families. 69% feel connected to their neighbors and the surrounding community. They feel very comfortable in their home. And 67% believe that they would not be able to live in Arlington without Clarendon Court, which is and the affordability it provides them, believing that they probably couldn't afford to live in the community if they had to pay market rate rent. Just to reiterate what Lindsay already brought up, we're going to be diving into more detail on several specific areas, and those are mobility, economic security, and education. Here's a little kind of taste of what we mean when we talk about mobility. And we're talking about the ability of residents to access all of the resources they need from their home. And that can be on car, on foot, public transportation, all different kinds of ways. And these are just a few examples. You have an Arlington Rapid Transit bus, which is a local bus service. The Virginia Square Metro Station, which is only a few blocks away from the property. An example of the bike share system, which there are 8 nearby that residents can utilize. And then some of the access the community offers around that, such as a local farmers market and some parks. So why it's important that locations like Clarendon Court provide access to the necessities of daily living. For families, low-income families, is really important to grow and prosper. So 93% of residents who responded to our survey feel that they can more easily access community resources, such as health and educational opportunities. And just a few statistics about the area is that they can reach 60,500 jobs in a 45-minute commute on public transit. There are a lot of local healthy food options, as Lindsay mentioned. There are 2 grocery stores within walking distance, as well as a local farmers market, which is the Ballston Fresh Farm Farmers Market. As Lindsay mentioned, it's especially beneficial to residents at Clarendon Court because the farmers market accepts EBT, which allows low-income families to access the healthy local produce that they perhaps wouldn't be able to otherwise. In addition to that, the county runs a coupon program for senior citizens, specifically so they can use these coupons to access produce at the farmers market. So residents can also take advantage of that. There are 14 public transit routes in the area, and that includes Arlington Rapid Transit, which provides buses in the Arlington area, as well as Washington, D.C. buses and Metro that will take residents right into the center of the region. Educational opportunities include access to the public schools and the local library, which actually offers a lot of services for residents that are free or low cost, and these include financial literacy classes, computer classes, a community garden, as well as health seminars and language conversation groups. And I just want to talk a little bit more about one of our residents at Clarendon Court. The photo on this page is of Rebecca. She first moved to D.C. from Pittsburgh to attend college. She later returned to D.C. to work for a small international profit, where she works with faith leaders in conflict zones around the world, promoting peace. While she finds her job to be extremely rewarding, she's a small nonprofit employee, so finding an apartment she could easily afford in the ever more expensive market was a real challenge. Without a car, she needed access to the metro system, and she needed to live in a community where she felt safe walking home from the metro after a long day at the office. And she thinks she found all of that at Clarendon Court. She's especially pleased with the local community and the amenities she can access on foot from it. She believes that it's especially important for housing to be available to people like her who work in the global nonprofit sector in an expensive city. Her story represents an example of the diversity of workers who are vital to the DC and global economies, but who might struggle to afford housing near their job. Without Clarendon Court, she'd find it very difficult to live in the area and thereby do the work that she loves. So this is just an example of some of our survey responses in the area of access to amenities. This is compared to the previous place of residence. So people were asked whether they feel they can more easily access these various resources at Clarendon Court compared to where they lived before that. And as you can see, there were over 70% of respondents in all areas stated that they have better access. And I want to point especially to the work item. 87% of residents reported that they have better access to their place of work living at Clarendon Court, which, as we know, is really important to their own financial security and their stress levels. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about economic security and financial security. When working families pay more than 30% of their income on rent, as Lindsay said, they face dangerous trade-offs between housing costs and meeting their other needs, like food, healthcare, and school fees. When they affordably house, they have more economic security and have more money to spend elsewhere. And in this page, you see some photos that represent some of the residents at Clarendon Court, as well as some different photos of the site. So the bottom photo is the 1993 addition to the property, and the photo in the middle at the top is the original 1940 construction. So when we talk about affordability and what that means to families, I want to talk a little bit more about how hard it is for families in Arlington to afford rent. So for example, if you're a single parent in Arlington and you work full-time at $15 per hour, you would have to spend almost 70% of your pre-tax income on rent. So in order for that rent to be affordable, or under 30% of their income, they would have to work 13 hours a day, 7 days a week, to afford an apartment for themselves and their children. So at Clarendon Court, they have that opportunity to spend no more than 30% of their income on rent. And using our impact multipliers, we estimate that on average, a household at Clarendon Court saves about $5,400 on rent each year, and that's compared to if they did not live at Clarendon Court and they were paying the fair market rent. So here's a specific example of what this kind of savings can do for a family. So a licensed practical nurse in Virginia could make around $50,000 a year. And we estimate that this specific family, say a parent and 2 children, was living on that salary. They could save about $6,500 each year if they lived in an affordable apartment rather than paying the fair market rent. And just an example of some of the ways that they could use that money is they could get DC Metro transportation cards for all 3 family members. That would cover 16 months or over almost a year and a half of transit use. They could pay extended day after school program fees for both children using a sliding fee scale that Arlington Public Schools offers to residents. And the parent could earn 35 credits towards an RN degree at the nearby community college, which would significantly increase future earning potential and the financial stability of the family. So not only does this extra money provide a way for people to more easily live their day-to-day life, it really provides a foundation for building a successful career or family or future. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about another resident now. This is Jamie. He's originally from Panama. He worked for the U.S. Navy on the Panama Canal until the canal was turned over to the full control of Panama in 1999. When that happened, he decided to take advantage of an opportunity to immigrate to the U.S. Him and his wife have lived at Clarendon Court since 2012, and he works full-time at an airport transit company, working at both major airports in Northern Virginia, so the location of Clarendon Court is really important to him. The airports are about 30 miles apart from each other, and Arlington is, this part of Arlington is between both of them, the nearby National Airport, as well as Dulles, which is a little bit further out, but he can access both of them on public transit from where he lives, which was really important when he first moved to Clarendon Court. His wife also works part-time, serving as a companion to elderly neighbors at a nearby apartment complex, and she can walk to that. So again, the location really provided her an opportunity to work. By living at Clarendon Court, they've really started saving and reaching some of their long-term goals. Jamie's been able to purchase a car, which, even though he can get there on public transit, makes it easier for him to get between the 2 airports at which he works more quickly. which has opened up a lot more opportunities for him at work, and he really hopes to stay at his job and build his career and become a manager someday. Now that he's achieved that goal, they're saving money, and they have hopes of buying their own home in the future. And they're just an example of several people that I talked to who have this dream and do plan on buying a home in the Northern Virginia area with the money they're able to save at Clarendon Court. So finally, we're going to talk a little bit about education. Arlington provides residents with an abundance of educational opportunities, and this isn't only kids, but the adults as well. These are just a few examples of some of the facilities in the town, such as recreation facilities. The top right picture is of the Arlington Art Center, which offers classes to adults and children and various enrichment activities. And then you see some of the children that reside at Clarendon Court as well. So when it comes to the kids, in 2016, 36 children living at Clarendon Court attended Arlington Public Schools, and a good education is a critical ingredient for lifelong success. Parents report feeling satisfied with the education their children are receiving in Arlington, and in fact, for every resident that we surveyed at Clarendon Court who had children attending Arlington Public Schools, they all said they were either satisfied or very satisfied with the school their children attend. So no complaints from the parents, which is great to hear. Arlington offers, besides being an award-winning school system with very high-achieving students, it offers a lot of educational options for parents to choose from. These include Montessori, language or Spanish-English immersion programs, expeditionary learning programs, and career and technical education. It also offers a before and after school care program, which charges fees to parents, but based on a sliding scale, which is based on income. So it's important for working parents, providing an affordable option for childcare outside of the school day. So it's really beneficial to some of our residents at Clarendon Court. And here are just a few statistics that illustrate the performance of Arlington Public Schools when it comes to educating economically disadvantaged students. And it's compared to the state of Virginia. So the blue line represents the local public school into which students at Clarendon Court have been zoned. The orange line represents the Arlington Public School system as a whole, and the gray line represents the state of Virginia. So just as an example, when it comes to graduation rates, economically disadvantaged students in the state of Virginia graduate about 87% of the time. In Arlington Public Schools, that number is 94%, and at the local high school, which is just a few blocks from Clarendon Court, 97% of economically disadvantaged students graduate. And when it comes to pursuing a higher education, Arlington's results are even more impressive. 58% of economically disadvantaged students go to some form of higher education, whether that's a technical school college or an associate's or bachelor's college, compared to 73% in Arlington and 80% of them at the local high school. So people coming from low-income backgrounds are really succeeding at Arlington Public Schools. Just one example of one of these families. This is Lee, who you saw at the top of the presentation, who had that quote that kind of led us into this whole case study. He actually arrived in the U.S. as a refugee. He was fleeing violence in his native Sudan, and now the part he came from is actually South Sudan. He hoped to find a safe place in which he could build his life and raise a family, and he really found more than he hoped for at Clarendon Court. Since arriving in the country, he's married, and he and his wife now have 4 children. Both he and his wife work in the Arlington area while his children pursue educational opportunities in Arlington, and he believes that the best thing about living at Clarendon Court is the opportunities that his kids have. He likes knowing that they're safe in their neighborhood and that they have plenty of friends in the development at Clarendon Court. He knows that they have access to a number of large parks in the neighborhood, which they walk to together, and they can play without him worrying about them. His youngest sons are both attending Arlington Public Schools, and there are the 2 boys featured with him in this photo. The youngest in elementary school and the elder at the local middle school. They both claim to enjoy school, and they believe their teachers really push them to try and do their best. Taku, the elder son, he plays football at the middle school, and he really looks forward to continuing to play that sport in the coming years. Lee also has 2 older children who aren't pictured here, a son and a daughter. His son graduated from Arlington Public School, and he's currently attending the nearby Northern Virginia Community College, where he's studying auto mechanics. His daughter is graduating from Arlington Public Schools this year, and she plans on continuing her studies as well, studying hospitality. Lee believes that the education they receive at Arlington have enabled them to pursue the careers of their choice, and he really thinks that his younger sons will be prepared to continue their studies in whatever areas they choose as well. But opportunities for education don't just exist for the children in the town. It's really important for adults as well who want to seek an education that they have the opportunity to do so. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, adults that have a high school diploma make about a little more than $200 per week than those who don't have a diploma. And over the course of a career, we estimate a career to be about 40 years, that would equal $400,000 in total. Adding an associate's degree to that adds another $180,000. So every step up in the educational ladder adds income over the course of a lifetime. And there are many options for adults in Arlington. Arlington Public Schools actually coordinates a number of programs from adults. Arlington Community High School is an alternative education high school open only to adults who are seeking high school diplomas. They also offer English classes to new immigrants, and the Arlington Community Learning Programs offer various enrichment classes for adults throughout the city. Arlington also has a really robust employment center where residents can go and get free services to help them find jobs or locate training opportunities in the area. That includes free resume coaching, job searching, and references. Nearby is also Northern Virginia Community College, or NOVA, which offers a wide variety of associate's degrees and certificates, and the opportunity to transfer to a 4-year bachelor's degree. And just one resident who's been taking advantage of this is Ravindra, who's pictured on this page. He's an immigrant from Nepal who has a bachelor's degree from Nepal, but that didn't qualify him for the jobs he wanted here in the United States. So knowing that he needed to go back to school, he was seeking a place where he could live, work, and attend school all in one area. When he first moved here, he was living with extended family in a suburb a little outside the city, and without a car, he found it difficult to work or attend school. When he found Clarendon Court, he was able to both get an easily accessible job at a local deli, and he qualified for in-state tuition at NOVA, which is an excellent community college. He's now studying cybersecurity there, and he's paying his tuition by working at a local deli with the help of money saved by having affordable rent. He plans on taking advantage of the opportunity to transfer to a 4-year university after he completes his associate's degree, and he's considering the local George Mason University, which has a campus just several blocks from the Clarendon Court location. He really thinks that living in Arlington has set him up for a bright future in achieving his educational dreams. So one last story about residents that I want to share is about MD and his family. It illustrates how Clarendon Court's positive impact on residents' economic security, education, and mobility helps families rebuild their lives. He moved to Arlington from Bangladesh in 1999, working at a gas station and delivering pizza to build his savings. He worked hard for a decade and decided to invest in a gas station of his own with a friend in 2009. However, he lost his small business with 170,000 other small businesses across the country during the economic downturn. It devastated his finances and his credit. He struggled for a long time to find a stable home for his family, including his wife and a new baby. They moved frequently, they stayed with friends, and the ongoing instability of all of this took a toll on their ability to recover financially. He worked for a taxi company and Uber, but frequent moves and the uncertainty of where they would be next meant that his wife could not commit to a job. So one day, while he was an Uber driver, one of his passengers was a resident in Clarendon Court and recommends that he try to get an apartment there. He did, and they've really been able to begin the process of rebuilding their lives from Clarendon Court. They're regaining economic security they lost during the recession. The certainty provided by their new home meant that his wife could pursue a part-time job working at CVS. And with a stable income and affordable rent, they've begun to pay down their existing debt and begin to save for the future again. They also believe that their sons are enjoying the benefits of living in Arlington. He believes that the education provided to them will make them successful for the rest of their lives. And he really dreams that one day they will go on to university. The location in central Arlington has been really helpful for MD's family. He gets to live in a really bustling area, which means that he never has to go far to find passengers, which for MD is really important because it means he can stay close to home. and ensure that he can be home with his kids when his wife has work at CVS. With young children to raise, this is really important. So living at Clarendon Court has really offered them the mobility they need to raise their growing family. So just to wrap it up, some of the success factors that Lindsay mentioned earlier are the Our Region Year Investment loan of $1.5 million that was used for pre-development during this project. And this financing can, as Rachel mentioned, often be difficult to obtain. So Loan Fund really fills a gap by providing it to worthy projects like Clarendon Court. Again, as Lindsay mentioned, the right of first offer was essential in ensuring the continued affordability of the property. This is not standard in a lot of Arlington County's financing deals, so they found it to be extremely useful in helping them preserve the affordability of the property. And they were able to craft a really great working partnership with McCormick, Bear, and Salazar to make sure the deal came to fruition. And McCormick, Bear, and Salazar is just one example of the committed partners that really helped make this project possible. Community also supported the project. In fact, the local civics organization submitted a letter of support to the project when it was going through approvals, which really helped speed things along. So I'm going to turn it back over to Rachel to make an interesting announcement about Our Region Year Investment.
Thanks, Lindsay and Aaron. That was so great. I want to share that as much information as that was, and I know it was a lot. First of all, it's very, very important information, but there's even more in the report, so I really encourage everyone to go. When we go to the final slide, there's a link there. You can go and you can access the report there. If you're just looking for a few snippets, we also did a 2-page fact sheet on the report as a primer, so you'll be able to download that as well. Within the next month or so, we'll be releasing a video, so for folks that are more inclined towards watching a video as opposed to reading a report, although I still encourage you to read the report, please keep an eye out for the video. We'll make an announcement around that. And I just want to share a personal, I got to spend the day at Clarendon Court while we were doing the video, and just the residents that we shared stories about are just so wonderful and so proud to be a part of the community. I went and got to kick the ball around with MD's family, and just everyone sharing their story about the contributions they're making to their community and how they're lifting up their families through having a safe and affordable place to live, and the connections that they're making through their work and into the schools, and by providing their kids a great education. It's just so inspiring. And what I hope that everyone leaves with is just the power of the potential of when we can all work together through something like Our Region Year Investment, or through small investments through the impact note, how just those very simple actions can lead to such impact of great magnitude. And so, again, if it's something you're interested in, we're still accepting investments through Our Region Year Investment. We're always accepting investments through the impact note. And so those links are always up, or also up on the last slide for you to look at. But without further ado, I just want to share that those were the 5 projects that we had financed through Our Region Year Investment. So 3 in DC, of course, Clarendon Court in Arlington, Suncrest Heights Apartments in Capitol Heights, Maryland, which is in Prince George's County. An interesting fact about Suncrest Heights is that in October we had a ribbon cutting. Our investors came out to the ribbon cutting, and it is now actually one of the largest solar array projects in all of Prince George's County. So just a fun fact about that. And I think I may have blown the lead on the big announcement, but here it is, our 6th deal. We just closed financing for our 6th deal through Our Region Year Investment. It is also in Arlington for all of the wonderful reasons we just highlighted today. It is with our partner, Arlington Partnership for Affordable Housing. It will add 173 new affordable homes to the Arlington community. And we're really excited. And this is, you know, I'm joking about it, but it's a big deal because of the money that's been invested through our Region Year investment so far, every single dollar has been put to use immediately, and that is very, very important for our investors. And not only has it been put to use, but it's been recycled, meaning that once the loans that we make initially paid back, they get reinvested into projects, and that's what we're seeing with Gilliam Place right here. So go to our Region Year investment. Shortly we'll have a project profile up on Gilliam Place. And with that, Donna, do we have any questions?
Let's see. Yes, we've gotten a couple in through the Q&A box. And just a reminder, if you have questions that you haven't yet submitted, please type them into the Q&A box on the lower right-hand side of your screen. And let's see. Question one, I heard there was a tax credit in D.C. for impact investing. Does this investment qualify?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. One of the really great results or I guess side benefits of this work of our Region Year investment was Council Member David Garasso was inspired by it as a way to finance affordable housing, a new way to bring new capital to the table. And so in May, he did introduce legislation to offer a tax credit for investors in D.C. making investments to fund affordable housing through organizations like us, so through CDFIs. Where that legislation stands is currently we're trying to move it through committee hearings, so it needs to go through hearings. But if all goes well, hopefully in the future there will be a tax credit for investing in something through the impact note in D.C. So, so not yet. Stay tuned. I'm sure that if that comes to fruition, we will be making that well known as an incentive to make an investment through our Region Year investment and through the impact note.
Great, thank you. We have a question from an audience member who would like to learn more, know where to go to learn more about Opportunity 360.
Sure, this is Lindsay. I can answer that. Actually, if you go to Enterprise's website, there you'll be able to find Opportunity through our homepage. There's also links. We're going to be circulating this PowerPoint deck, and there's links embedded in it that will take you directly to Opportunity 360. And on the website, there's a number of different features. There's a page that really describes the framework and the research that we put into it. There's a measure tool that actually allows you to play around in the data and click around on different census tracts all over the country and pull up an opportunity report that provides a lot of the data that we used in this analysis for any census tract in the country. So there's really a wealth of data there. And then some other cool resources around evaluation and also using kind of story mapping and using data to really tell the story of what's happening in communities. So there's a lot of great resources there, and we're going to be adding more. So if you do poke around on the site, I recommend checking back in a couple more times over the next couple months because we're going to be continually adding more to the platform since we did just launch it in September. So we've got a lot more coming.
Great, thank you. I see, let's see, I think I've got two more questions in here. Can I invest money from my donor-advised fund?
Yes, that is actually a great way to make an impact investment. So just in case folks don't know what a donor-advised fund is, donor-advised funds is a vehicle through which you make a, you place money aside that you're ultimately at one point going to provide as a grant to a charity, but there's no real time restriction around that. So it's just a set-aside fund that you create as an individual. And while it sits there, in your donor advised fund, or DAF for short, DAF, you can direct it can be held in a community foundation or otherwise. You can direct the manager of your DAF to consider investing it through something like our Region Your Investment or through the impact note. So if you have a donor advised fund and you're interested in putting your money to work while it's sitting there waiting to be granted out, I am more than happy to talk to you about that. So please feel free to email me. My email is right there on the screen.
Excellent. And we have a three-part question here. I'm not sure if we're going to get to all three parts, but let's start with the first part, which is, what is the average size of your investment project?
Yeah, so the average size, it's hard. It really depends on geography. It depends on the type of loan we're providing, so where our lending and our financing fits within the broader development pipeline. So loan fund could provide, anything from a 6-month bridge to a 25-year permanent mortgage. So we really do have a number of different products that we offer as far as financing. So as far as an average, I think that may be skewed a little bit. So what I would do is encourage you to reach out to me, and I can put you in touch with our lending team. As you see, Clarendon Court was $1.5 million. That size is not a problem for us at all. We do have deals that we've done recently for $200,000. We have deals where if we go up into the multi-millions, we can sometimes participate with other lenders in those deals. And so we have flexibility. So if it's something that you're interested in, I'm happy to talk with you about that. The other part of your question, I believe, is how do you pull the projects together, the financing for the projects? At Enterprise, we have what we call a platform for financing, or a vertical for financing. So in addition to the loan fund, which provides sort of that early stage capital most of the time, so pre-development acquisition, we have a very large low-income housing tax credit syndication business line. So sometimes the deals that we do connect into our LIHTC syndication pipeline. Sometimes the LIHTC syndication pipeline will reach out to us and ask for bridge financing. Increasingly, we have worked with our new market tax credit team to do joint lending with them, so leverage loans with our new market tax credit team as they're putting out allocations that receive equity investments. We'll do leverage loans with them. We work with a number of governments, local jurisdictions throughout the country, so we can work with them to find takeout financing, and a number of bank partnerships we work with them to do takeout financing as well. So that it really just depends on the type of project, but that is one of the core competencies of Enterprise, is that we do have all of these financing lines in-house where we can work with each other to put deals together. And we have a permanent mortgage company as part of our family of businesses called Bellwether Enterprise as well.
Great, thank you. And we are at time, unfortunately. Rachel, do you have any final wrap-up words for us?
No, I just want to thank everyone, to our investors through Impact Note, through our Region Your Investment, and otherwise. Of course, always thank you for supporting our work and our mission. And you know where to find me if you ever have any questions about the impact of your investment. We hope that you feel that your capital is, like we like to say, on a mission. But all joking aside, it is such a huge part of what we do, and we really do appreciate your partnership. And if you have any questions about the reporting we've provided, just reach out to me, and I will be happy to connect you with Lindsay and Aaron.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. And thank you to Lindsay and Aaron as well, and to all of our attendees today. Thank you for joining us for this Enterprise Live Online event. We hope to see you online again very soon. This concludes today's event. Goodbye.